Hey guys, good morning. How's everybody doing today? It is the day after St. Patrick's Day, Tuesday, March 18th, and it's right about 9:30 in the morning. I just wanted to tell you a little story about how little lies can turn into big lies. And big lies can affect more than just the person who's telling the lies. They can affect the entire society that the lies affect, okay? Maybe that's not the best way to put it, but I think you'll understand what I'm trying to say if you just give me a few minutes of your time. And I really do think that you need to try to understand what I'm saying, because this is a very special moment for humanity. I don't want to overplay that too much, but let me just give you the story. So my son Sage, yesterday I was sitting here writing about Mark Carney and the disaster he appears to be. He is one of the most disingenuous people I've ever seen. But what I want to say is that he's not necessarily lying. He just, and I keep trying to drive this home, people act out what they believe. So what does he believe? We'll come back to that. My son, yesterday I got called while writing about Mark Carney, and he had thrown a rock. Well, first of all, the principal was like, "Oh, I need to talk to you. There was an incident in the playground." And I'm like, "Is my son okay?" like I'm just spit it out first. She's like, yeah, just let me put you on speaker for a minute. And she puts me on speaker, and my son is he's really worked up. And he's trying to tell me something, but I can't understand because he's crying and he's really worked up. And I said, can you take me off speaker, first of all? And initially I was frustrated. I was like, I really don't appreciate the the tactic that you're taking here, this kind of like struggle session. This is like not cool. But I will be there in 5 minutes and we can talk about this. So I went down and I spoke to them. And she said, the principal's woman, she's very lovely, the woman. We spoke, we had a good conversation, the principal, the vice principal, me, and my son. But when I first walked in, I think she was taken back with what I had said on the phone, which, I asserted something, which I was jumping the gun, but I see the bigger picture. I see the bigger analysis of how things seem to be working right now. And so I am threatened by things that appear to be kind of like leftist in orientation. And I have good reason, and we'll come back to that. So she was like, "Oh, I didn't mean to use a fear tactic or whatever." I said, no. I said it was a struggle session, and it's a leftist tactic to get people to confess their sins in front of other people. The thinking being that it will cleanse them of some kind of original sin or something. It's actually quasi-religious. But it's very much a tactic that was used in China. Not so much in Russia. Actually, it was communism had become more advanced, more propagandistic, better by the time it reached China, and that was a part of the thing that they would do. They would have struggle sessions where they would sometimes literally kill a person on the stage in front of people for their sins if they didn't confess. You can see that at the beginning of the miniseries on Netflix called Three Body Problem. That's stuff that actually happens. So just so we're clear, the mob wants you to confess your sins, or sometimes it will beat you to death. That is a very throwback-ish kind of theosophical position. It's a quasi-religious position. Just so you know, that is something that still takes place in parts of the Middle East where people could be stoned to death for sinning in a way that is not approved of by the public. I mean, that happens. It's just a thing that actually happens. It's a thing that people actually do. No, I'm talking about my son, and I'm getting to the point. Sorry, I need some water. Turns out that he was crying because he was playing in the playground and he threw a rock at the fence and it ricocheted up. And there was a car parked in front of the fence and it hit the back window and poof, shattered the back window. And at first he was like, "Oh no." And my other son was there. He's like, "Whoa, come look what Sage did." And other kids came over like, "Whoa." And he initially got scared and he ran off and hid, which is a perfectly reasonable thing for anybody to do. When you are afraid of facing the music, you run off and hide. Unless you are used to that kind of thing, unless you're used to being put in the spotlight so much that telling something that's like a white lie comes off as being very comfortable for you. Like politicians. Politicians are very comfortable telling white lies over and over and over again because they understand that there's a larger program at play. Yes. There's a larger program at play, like a long-term kind of like we're in the game and we have to play the game the way that the game is played, and then we get rewards. So white lying actually becomes rewarded in politics. That's important to understand. So, but not in the case of my son. My son ran and hid, and I said, I talked to the principal and the vice principal about it, and we had a conversation. And I said, you know what? It was his fault. We'll speak to the owner of the car, who's a teaching assistant at the school. She wasn't there, but I ended up speaking to her husband later on the day. I brought Sage home with me, and he basically wrote an apology. I told him, write an apology note, because that's the right way to address things. And so he wrote the note, and then he kind of worked. He likes working on comics. He wrote some comics for the rest of the day, and then we went out for lunch because it was St. Patrick's Day. My wife finished fairly early, so we went and had a pint at our friend's restaurant downtown. Had a pint of Guinness, and Sage had some French fries, and my wife had a glass of wine. And she mentioned to me that she had told the neighbor what had happened, and the neighbor had mentioned, I'm probably getting this a little bit screwed up. So I'm getting a little bit screwed up. It doesn't matter. The point is still the same. The details, even if they're a little bit wishy-washy, the point is still the same, and I will come to it. So the neighbor had mentioned that if it was on a parking lot at a school, that's private property, and so the insurance company should actually waive any deductible. But I'd already spoken to the guy, and the guy told me, so this is the husband of the TA, he said to me, well, I spoke to the insurance adjuster, and the insurance adjuster said that it's going to be a $500 deductible. And there was some extra talk about what would happen if he didn't bring it to the right dealer. Like they wanted him to bring it to Speedy to get it fixed, but if he took it to Speedy, he had already called and inquired. And Speedy said, well, we can't look at it for a couple days. And he wanted to bring it to Nissan. It's a Nissan. So he said, I want to bring it to the Nissan dealer. They could look at it right away and get the window replaced right away. And I said, that's probably the smarter call. And if you want, I'll speak to the insurance adjuster and explain that if you take the car to the place that's not their preferred vendor, you actually save 2 days on a rental. So it's sometimes bureaucracy gets so messed up, it doesn't even understand that it's making all of these really kind of bumbling, fumbling errors that cost everybody money for no particular reason other than this is just the way that we do it. That's how politicians do it, by the way. Politicians think of things in terms of this is just how we do it. Right? And they're all kind of pushing the direction. The Liberal Party all just backs up Carney and stands behind him while he says a bunch of what was completely ridiculous nonsense. Because he was talking about, we're going to have a more focused, and our strategy is to have less people doing the same work. It's why couldn't you do that? Why didn't you do that before? That's actually the conservative position. Just so we're clear, conservatives say that we can do more with less, and liberals always say we need more to do more. That's just kind of the default position of politicians. And in fact, that confess all of their thinking about everything. So but the minute it became politically a problem for them, when they realized that the winds of politics and the public sentiment are changing, they're like, no, we need to be leaner and we need to save money, and we need to do, so they don't actually believe anything. That's really important to understand. They're following a plan. Their plan is just to be in power. And when you will do and say anything just to be in power, that becomes a problem in and of itself. But back to my son. So it turns out that, if a car is parked on private property and an accident happens, if it's purely accidental, they should waive, under comprehensive insurance, they should waive the deductible. There should be no deductible because no one's at fault. It was an accident. But there's a gray area there because it can't be known whether or not the accident was actually intentional. So did my son really throw a rock at the fence and have it ricochet, and then it just hit the window in such the wind? It's not the windshield because it's the back window, but did it hit the window in such a way that it just, and it wasn't a big rock, and it wasn't thrown that hard. He swears it wasn't thrown that hard. He swears it wasn't a big rock. So it's kind of difficult to believe, but it ricocheted up, busted the window, which is like $2,000 plus the cost of towing, plus the cost of a car rental if you need one, until, because you can't drive that car with a busted out window. And for some reason, his wife felt like she couldn't drive it. I don't know why she could have driven it, but neither here nor there. The point is that the damage was done, and we needed to figure out how to resolve it. And so who's going to pay? Well, of course, the adjuster is going to say, well, you have to pay the deductible because that's the way that it works. Somebody threw the rock broke the window, it's your fault. But we don't know if it was an accident or not. And that's where it becomes like this gray area. And insurance companies, if they know all the facts, they can actually make you pay for it. They can make you pay the deductible. Even if it was like, if it was an accident, but it was like not on private property, if it was in like public property, it would be slightly different. My own car was hit recently, and the other guy had to pay the deductible because he hit my car and my car was parked. The point is that when you speak to the adjuster, they're always going to try to get away with saving as much money as they can for their company. And it doesn't matter if they tell little white lies. They will tell the customer on the other end of the phone, oh no, this is the way that it is, because their job is to collect money. In the same way that a politician's job is to collect money from you. It's like, and then their job is just to keep their job. Like that's the way that things work right now. So they don't mind completely changing their story and their orientation and suggesting, oh, this is a new cabinet and new this and new that, and we're going to fight Trump and blah, 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 blah. But he said something else. He says other things that really make the point that he's not telling you the truth. And it's not that he's lying. It's that he believes something that is part of what his job is to believe as part of the managerial elite. And his job still is something that has not been resolved. We have not gone back and we have not re-examined what really happened 5 years ago. So it's 5 years ago now that the pandemic started and they shut down the world. When that happened, the managerial elite of the world enacted a plan that it was already known as Agenda 2030, but it became kind of like intertwined with this WEF initiative called, well, no, they're not. I mean, they're just doing their job. This is the way that the world works. They're not criminals. This is the way that the world works. They're kind of like white collar thieves. But that's their job. That's what they're hired to do. They're supposed to try to not lose money for the insurance company. That makes perfect sense from the perspective of an insurance company. It makes perfect sense for a government to not lose the amount of money that they can claw out of the hands of the people that put them in power. That actually makes perfect sense. And there's a difference between the way that conservatives approach it and the way that everyone else approaches it, because conservatives actually at their core still have something a little bit left of what is understood as traditional ways of thinking about things. And in the Western sphere, in the Western political world, and this is where everybody gets it all screwed up. In the Western political world, that came from Christianity. It did not come from the Enlightenment. It did not come from our wisdom. It did not come from secular humanism. These are all lies. It came from Christianity. It came from the idea, the example of Jesus Christ dying for the sins of the people. He took on original sin. He said you have to forgive people. He said that you have to sacrifice. That is actually what the West was built on. It's a deeper ethical and moral system and idea that still has some retention in the Conservative Party here in Canada. And that's why everybody always says, far right, you're a far right extremist. Well, no, a far right extremist is a person that believes that you have individual rights that trump the rights of the collective, okay? Because collectivism is the way that everybody thinks about everything now. So it's basically like just a new kind of form of communism meeting managerialism of the elites. And the elites signed a pact in 1992 called Agenda 21 in Rio. I don't know if they, like, again, the details might be slightly off, but this is just like, you can look into this. 1992, Rio, the climate conference, they said, well, we need to approach the way things are handled in society with a completely different way of thinking about things. And interestingly enough, Jim Balsillie, who was the CEO of BlackBerry, or maybe one of the CEOs, but was just on with Jordan Peterson. They're actually talking about this thing that I'm talking to you about right now. That's how much roots this stuff has. But you need to understand that people like Carney, they grew up in that world, okay? They grew up thinking that's just how you think. You think about the world that's going to be. You don't think about the world that was, but you move towards this goal, and the goal has always been, and it was reaffirmed in 2015, they signed the pact called Agenda 2030 that says by 2030, everything is going to be carbon-based, okay? So when we hear carbon credits coming out of Mark Carney's mouth, you need to understand he's not lying. That's what he believes. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. But I want to go back to what I was talking about with Sage. So with Sage, I said, I walked him to school this morning, and I said, oh, Sage, did you bring the note for the TA? Because I made him write a note. And we had left it that I was going to pay the deductible, but we talked to my neighbor, and it's about, okay, so now I'm wondering, plus we're very tight for funds because I've been fighting this insane managerial elite for so long in my own personal way. But I know I lose a lot of people, but trust me, my intentions are good. I'm trying to help all of you by understanding how this stuff happens. So I'm fighting with the idea that I have to pay this $500 deductible now because, what if it was an accident? The insurance company should have to pay. In the same way that the government should have to admit when they're wrong. And they didn't admit when they're wrong. They have not admitted that they were wrong, that they started what was more or less a fake pandemic in 2020. It was born of their secular humanist roots that told them that climate is the number one issue facing the world. You hear it, it was completely and inextricably attached to the climate issue in 2020. And there was just so much language that it became obvious to me that what was happening was not actually political, it was religious. It was a religious movement, okay? Because these people were acting in a quasi-religious way because they had attached all of this idea of the Great Reset was the thing that attached itself coming out of the WEF, this concept of the Great Reset, which again was attached to the concept of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. But the Great Reset became the Great Narrative. These are books written by the WEF's that weird guy Klaus Schwab and Terry Millay. This is the management class, okay? You need to understand, this is what they believe. This is their religion. It's a religion. It's a religion. It's a secular humanist religion. This book, when I read it, it came out in the summer of 2020. I said, holy shit, they're lying. And so since then, I've been trying to figure out just what was going on. Anyway, so it's important to know all the facts. You need to know all the facts. And for a politician, they're not concerned with all the facts. They're concerned with Agenda 2030. And Mark Carney is concerned with getting his climate stuff in place. That's his job. And he's doing it on behalf of the crown. So when we hear them come out and say, we're going to protect Canada's sovereignty from Donald Trump. No, they're not. They've never protected our sovereignty from the beginning because Canada has never been a sovereign country. That's why when Mark Carney got sworn in, he pledged allegiance not to Canadians, but to the king. So you need to listen to what these people say because it tells you something about what they believe. Does that mean he's lying? No, he believes that we are a vassal state of the king, and he believes that our fealties should be to the king. So the way we think about the future should be about what the king thinks the future should be about. And I don't know if you know this, but Prince Charles, now King Charles, he's a huge environmentalist, and a lot of the things that he's thought about, had a huge hand in this idea of carbon pricing. There was a push to do natural asset corporations last year that was pushed off by the Americans, by the way, because even they could recognize that there's something else going on here. In natural asset corporations, there's this idea that you can actually price what the value of a piece of land is worth, but not through the market, not through the way we understand things, not through free market economics, but in the way that what does it cost to maintain that piece of land? So that's where the carbon comes back in. Okay, so Mark Carney, this is his religion. This is his managerialism is his religion, and his God is the state, which is in turn the king. It's really important to understand that these people all believe that. And Mark Carney, when he says, I'm getting rid of the carbon tax, he signed up, it was all an act, by the way. It was all just like, and that has come out now. It was like he was signing some piece of paper that meant nothing. He was trying to do like an executive order. He was trying to like mimic Trump. Because Trump really does have a different situation in the United States. He has the ability to actually sign executive orders and like presidential degrees, and they take effect based on his, because in the United States context, the president is the king. But there's no king. It's a president elected by the people. Because they actually broke away from the king. It's really important to understand the history of this stuff. They rebelled against the British because the British were taxing them. It was called the Boston Tea Party. And they were taxing them too much. And they were basically like a managerial elite, a bureaucratic class. But in that case, it was more like, what do you call them? Aristocrats. So the aristocrats just became like the new bureaucratic class. But it was always just managerialism because their God is the king. But in the United States context, their God was actually Jesus Christ. So they believe that forgiveness and sacrifice is actually the way that you're supposed to approach things. And that means that you tell the truth no matter what. Like we're not trying to get to the carbon credit future. No, the important thing is telling the truth and telling people the truth. But sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they think that they might have to pay some kind of price for telling that truth. And, you know, the truth is that we put people in power that are empty suits. We let them frighten us about all kinds of things, including COVID. We let them shut things down, including businesses, and people's lives were destroyed, including mine. And they've paid no price for any of that stuff that they did. And they're still just doing more of the same stuff because they're still trying to get to Agenda 2030. See, that's never gone away. The secular humanist worldview that was adopted by the king and impressed on the managerial elite through Agenda 2030 and then through the Great Reset, it's all been about carbon. Because the way that we used to do things, the market system, is out, and what's in is this new managerial system that they're trying to bring in. So they don't need to tell the truth. What they need to tell you is what you need to hear in order to get to their utopian, socialist, leftist, neo-feudal bullshit future. That's what they're trying to do. And that's who Mark Carney works for. But I haven't got to the point yet. I'm sorry if I keep going, but like I think people need to understand this stuff. Because if we don't, then we can't do anything about it. You can't fight you can't fight a monster that you can't see. So anyways, my son, I want to fight it because I don't think that we should have to pay because it was an accident. So when I walked him to school this morning, I said, "Oh, did you bring the note?" And he goes, "Oh." And the vice principal was right there. I was like, "Oh, he's got a note for the TA. He's got to bring it to her." And he goes, "Oh, no, I don't think I did. Let me check my backpack." And he looks at his backpack. And the notes, he says, "Oh, I don't see it. Guess no note. I guess I'll have to do it some other time." And I was just like, no. I'll go home and get the note and I'll bring it back. And then you will go and deliver the note to the TA and apologize. But I'm still thinking about this situation with the insurance, and am I going to have to pay? And what matters in this case is telling the truth. And so I thought, if Sage is lying to me about bringing the note, by the way, I missed a piece. I had texted my wife. I said, "Do you know where the note is?" And she calls me and she says, "He wrote a new note this morning." He wrote a new note this morning because the one he had written yesterday, he wanted to put $50 of his own money in because he was feeling apologetic. And he wanted to put $50 of his own money in towards fixing the window. And he had written that into the note. I'll even show you. It was pretty cute. I want you guys to understand something. I am telling you the truth to the best of my ability. And I'm not holding anything back. I think that you need to understand that people like Mark Carney are not telling you the truth. They're not telling you what they actually believe. They're not telling you who their God is because, well, they don't have a God. He might even be like a Christian on paper, but he's not a real Christian because he doesn't actually believe in God. He believes in the power of the king. He believes in the managerialism. He believes in carbon. And I just want to make one thing very clear here. I want to draw a distinction between pollution, the destruction of the natural habitat, extinction of species, and carbon. Okay? Because those are not the same thing. Climate change, the way that we've been told by the managerial elite, because they actually have another plan in mind, has been all about pricing carbon. And that's why they must necessarily tell you that climate change is attached to the level of carbon in the air. But every single time we hit these limits, they tell us that are supposed to like lead to huge fires and like you've seen all this stuff on TV talking about how, oh, the fires are caused by climate change and the floods and the blah, 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 blah. Like, first of all, that's a business strategy to sell you the carbon credit pricing of the future. Again, it's all managerialism. It's baked into what these people believe. If they believe it, they will tell you that they believe it. And people like Prince Charles, now King Charles, have invested a lot of money into these kinds of futures that they've been planning for a long, long time. A long time. So, my son wrote this letter. Let's see, you see it? Apology letter. I'm sorry. And you see the broken window and the... He can draw way better than this, but he just did this kind of like quickly. I'm so sorry. I really didn't mean to break your car window. I wasn't thinking at the moment. I was going to throw a small rock at the fence and I threw it too high and accidentally hit your car's back window. I'm super sorry. Oh no, I think I just found out something. I'm super sorry. Here's some money to help you with the repair. So my wife says to me that he wrote a new note this morning. And I just realized he confessed in that note what actually happened. So now I got to talk to him again. Oh, you know, if you listen to people sometimes, it's a thing. It's a psychological tell you. They'll when they're being slightly deceptive, it comes through in their words. And in the speeches that Mark Carney has given, it comes through in his words. There was a video put out yesterday by this guy named Viva Frey that you should go find because Viva at the end, you know what, I'll find it for you. This will make my point. And since I've already made this a freaking hour-long stream, I might as well just keep going. So my son, he lied about the note and I got him in the office and I said, Sage, I need you to tell me the truth because there could be a camera. There could be something that caught you doing this. And if I'm going to decide to fight this with the insurance company, I need to know the absolute truth. Did you throw the rock? Did it ricochet off the fence and break the window? Did you see what I just saw? If you listen to people speak, they tell you what they think, maybe even by accident. See, he told me he hit ricocheted. He said, I threw a rock at the fence and I threw it too high and accidentally hit your car's back window. It doesn't say it ricocheted off the fence. Now, I'm going to need to clarify that with him because he could be still telling me the truth and maybe he just didn't write it in that note because he was in a rush. It's difficult to get to the truth sometimes, but unfortunately for people like Mark Carney, there are cameras. And these people speak into cameras often and the things that they say and the things they believe, they basically tell you. So it's important to listen. Okay, I want to show you something. Ready? This is Mark Carney speaking at Davos, the WEF, It's from Viva Frey. Mark Carney, crowned Prime Minister. WEF rejoices its globalist agenda infiltrates Canadian cabinet. So, I mean, that's a bit hyperbolic, but this is Mark Carney. As you can see, he is the UN Special Envoy for Climate Action and Finance. Are you putting this together yet? There it is, World Economic Forum, carbon markets, a conversation, Davos agenda. This is Nicole Schwab, co-director, platform to accelerate nature-based solutions. This is Klaus Schwab's daughter. She works for him. These people don't believe in God. They don't believe in forgiveness, and they don't believe that you're even a human being. Not really. Do they believe it about themselves? It's entirely possible to conceive that they believe that they're good people, but they're following an agenda nonetheless because of what they believe. And when you read this book, you realize something. It talks about the end of the financial system as it exists, and it talks about a new biodigital convergence happening. If you believe in the biodigital convergence, by default, you believe that human beings are actually just meat robots. Really important. If you believe that humans are meat robots, by definition, you don't believe in a creator that came from outside of the creation and told you you're not allowed to enslave other people. By the way, there's a divine spark in each and every one of you. You are not a machine. You are a living soul having an experience in a place that I created. And you can't transcend the creation by merging with it. If you believe that, you believe something really cockeyed. It doesn't make any sense. He believes it. Nicole Schwab here believes it. And so this is just like a couple months ago. And this is Mark Carney talking the way he actually thinks and believes. You need to know this is what he thinks and what he believes. He believes that you are a meat robot. He believes in the biodigital convergence. He believes that we are changing the financial system. And he believes that anything he says and does is justified because this is his job. He's part of the managerial elite. He doesn't actually say anything that he believes because he doesn't believe in anything. He doesn't believe in a higher power. He doesn't believe that it's wrong to lie. He has been hired to do this stuff, and it actually has affected him in his own life in a way that I'm going to show you in just a minute. That shows that he truly believes it. He truly believes it. And this article I saw last night, I went, oh my goodness. He really believes it. And I will explain that in just a minute. It's important to know all of the facts if you're going to determine who is at fault for something. These people launched a fake pandemic in 2020 and have not paid any price for it. In fact, this guy that is going to tell you what he actually believes right now, although it may be a little bit confusing for you, but I will try to translate. He's going to tell you what he actually believes, okay? This is important. This is what these people believe. You need to understand that. He's not evil. He's just actually kind of stupid. And he's so stupid that his own belief system, his own secular humanist belief system has affected his own family. And I will show you that in just a minute. But he believes it. You need to understand that.
Thank you, Nicole. And let me compliment the...
Okay.
Channel, go do it. Right down there.
So,
subscribe, notifications turned on. But more important than anything,
Viva's actually really smart, but he misses this point too. But brilliantly, he put this clip at the end of his comments on the appointing. And nobody voted for Mark Carney. Do you understand? He was installed because he was groomed to do what he is going to try to do, which is to say he's going to tell you what he thinks is true, because he doesn't believe in God. You need to understand that.
What is the role of offsets in the context of a 1.5 degree climate ambition?
Okay, so what is the role of offsets in the context? So the context of a 1.5 degree, so they're talking about how to bring down the global temperature. And they believe that the global temperature is inextricably linked to the amount of carbon in the air. So if you believe that, that's like, oh, 1 plus 1 equals 2. And so 2 minus 1 equals 1. They want to get back to a steady state. This is what they believe. It's not evil. It's just really, really dumb. Okay? It's a socialist way of thinking about the world. It says that you must have degrowth. It says that you must claw back the things that the people are taking from you that are probably yours. You need to understand the mindset. Okay? These people think that they're going to be in the ownership class of everything. They've been groomed for this day for their entire lives because of what they believe. Temperature goes up because carbon goes up. By the way, there's literally no evidence for that. The evidence for that was originally Michael Mann's hockey stick. But there are people that actually look at this a lot more intelligently, and they write books about it, and they say, well, how does this actually affect people? And they say, like, what are the actual effects on the climate? Not the climate. What are the actual effects on the ground? Like, are species being hurt? Are people being hurt? If you don't see a difference between a human being who has a soul and just any kind of life, then it becomes interchangeable. That's dehumanizing by definition. They don't see any difference, okay? Really, 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 really important to understand that. Because they don't believe in a human soul.
Well, thank you, Nicole, and let me compliment the leaders of this task force. It's a remarkable achievement. First thing to say is that this carbon budget...
He's the leader.
On business as usual, so pre-pandemic emissions, we have less than...
He refers to the people... He's the UN Special Envoy for Climate Action and Finance. He's the guy. He's like, whoa, I want to commend all the guys. He's talking about himself. He's so dumb. He doesn't understand that he's talking about himself. Or maybe he does. I don't know. It's just dumb.
A decade of a carbon budget. It's a remarkable achievement. First thing to say is that this carbon budget is very precious. On business as usual, so pre-pandemic emissions, we have less than a decade of a carbon budget.
We have less than a decade.
To say we remain within 1.5 degree temperature increases.
We have to do this now. This is our religion. We have to do it. Climate alarmism is my religion.
So it is a limited carbon budget. And in that context,
we have to do it now.
Really, a voluntary carbon offset market does four things. The first, it's complementary, underscore that, complementary to companies' efforts to reduce absolute emissions. Companies' responsibility, first and foremost.
This is what he believes. He believes that the most important thing in the world is to get everybody to reduce their carbon emissions, including industry. So when he tells you to your face, to the camera, that we're going to create lots of better, high-paying jobs, how do you do that while you're reducing the carbon footprint? Because to reduce the carbon footprint, by definition, means to restrict action. It means to restrict growth. It means to retard growth. And this retard is telling you to your face that this is his religion. To retard growth. And then he comes in and he says, oh, we're gonna make everything more efficient, and we're gonna bring jobs back. And he even says that we're gonna bring back like a mixture of, I've gone through all this. It's wild what he says, because he's either the stupidest person on the planet or he's the best liar you've ever seen in your life. Or he's both. I actually believe he's both, and I will show you why. Just give me a minute.
Is to reduce their absolute emissions, and as the report says, they need...
He's like a robot. Okay, that's the best way to understand it. He's an NPC. He doesn't have any actual thoughts of his own. He doesn't have original thoughts. He has been groomed to be this stupid for his entire life, and he has been rewarded for being this stupid. Okay? He has been rewarded for saying what everybody that are in his in-group want to hear. And those people don't even see the costs of their own insane belief system. And I will come back to that.
Need to first reduce, then report, including net zero plans, and I'm sure we'll get into the specifics of that.
Net zero.
Then look to offset. The second thing that this does is it is catalytic. It's catalytic not for...
So it's a catalytic. It will cause a change. Putting carbon market credit on everything will cause a change. It will change the way everything works dynamically.
Renewable projects in many advanced economies where the economics are absolutely clear, they're profitable and they will be driven, but they're catalytic for projects that many of which are in emerging and developing economies where the economics are not yet quite there, and this can help tip the balance for those projects to come in. These offsets can also be catalytic as part of helping the economics of absolutely essential breakthrough technologies that need to happen for us to ultimately get to net zero. And I'm sure that will come up more clearly because
Okay, so it's a belief system that says that if we focus, and what he's talking about, his catalytic thing is he's saying that we need to get all this money and we need to focus it on these new technologies that are going to change the balance of power in the world, and it's going to change our carbon output. This is a belief system. He thinks, oh, by the way, it's attached to artificial intelligence. I'm not even going to go into that, but they think that they're going to create new technologies by these people who fuck everything up. They make everything. They don't actually do anything. They're literally parasites on us. Okay, on the working class, these people are nothing but parasites. Okay. They don't actually contribute anything of value to the system. They're a managerial elite that don't believe in anything but their own power, and they will lie to you up and down to get their world system, their worldview in place. And they lie to themselves. This is really important. He's saying this stuff because he probably actually believes it. But he doesn't understand that what he's talking about is he is saying we're gonna use this in the developed markets, places like Canada, where we're gonna extract wealth and use it as a catalytic thing to create these new technologies that are gonna save us from everything, and we're gonna use those to lower the carbon footprint. So somehow, magically, they're going to come up with some kind of like magical system that is going to create things that are gonna be so wonderful. They don't know how. They're not inventors. They're not entrepreneurs. They don't actually build things. This is just a managerial elite speaking to you about the way that they have been taught to believe things because of people like Klaus Schwab, who says that we're going to join with the machines, okay? He doesn't actually know what he's talking about.
Bill Gates has led on those technologies. The third thing is
right there
through technologies that need to happen for us to ultimately get to net zero. And I'm sure that will come up more clearly because Bill Gates has led on those technologies.
Bill Gates. He's now deferring to Bill Gates. Bill Gates, who is a known Malthusian, which is a person that says there's too many people on the planet and we need to reduce the population by any means necessary. Just so you know, he says things that he believes because that's what he believes. Huge investor in artificial intelligence.
The third thing is this market is cross-border. This market is being driven. It's evolving.
So it's worldwide. This market is cross-border. It's worldwide. When the pandemic started, they told us no one left behind, even if it says we can't lose one life. And it's important to understand that these people then went and they were so... A lot of people want to say, oh, you know, they faked getting their shots or whatever like that. No, I think they actually got their vaccines because they believe in the biodigital convergence. So they believe that you are nothing but a handful of genes. And so gene therapy, including starting with what has been admitted was mRNA, is literally a way of changing genes in order to change the way that your body functions. The head of BioNTech, Moderna, Albert Bourla, was on the stage with these people at the WF. I put the clip up talking about, oh, these conspiracy theorists, they say that we're trying to hurt them or something. They just don't know that we saved so many lives. So it's important to understand that these people literally believe the shots saved lives. And no amount of evidence to the contrary is going to change their mind because this is their belief system. They believe that they're going to merge with the code. They believe that they are code. They believe that you're a robot. They don't believe in the human soul. They don't believe in spiritual dimensions. They believe in materialism, period. End of story. They believe that everything is made up of little interchangeable things that our computers are going to figure out how to make everybody, we're going to cure cancer. They think you're a biological robot, and they think the world is made up of digital stuff. I'm not going to go any deeper on that. But like this is their belief system.
Market, but it's being driven by companies making these net zero commitments. Most of those companies, the vast majority of those companies, are in the G7 advanced economies, so-called advanced economies. So they will be looking for high quality, high integrity offsets. And most of those offsets will come from emerging and developing economies. So this is advantage.
Sorry, my wife just called. I don't know why. I have to go. You got to listen to people talk. Oh, and the reason that You go find this video. Breaking. Mark Carney sent daughter to discredited UK Tavistock transgender clinic. Okay, so he has a daughter who was formerly a boy. And I'm not he believes the secular humanist thing so much that when he sent his child to Yale, they decided they were a girl and began the transgender process. I'm not saying anything other than to tell you that this is a religion. It's a cult. And these guys come very close to pointing it out right here.
Don't quite understand. Like, she considers herself non-binary, but she still considers herself to be Mark Carney's daughter. Alex, can you explain that to me?
No, actually, I can't. I was thinking about that last night as well. I don't know if gender-neutral folks go by daughter or son, right? I mean, what would you describe them as a child? I don't know, frankly. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know either. Cosmin, do you know?
Oh, for Christ. Okay, you know what? I'll leave it there. Go watch the video. I'm trying to finish this Substack where I talk about all this kind of stuff. I'm trying to tie these. This is really important. This is really important. It's his belief system. He doesn't. If he didn't believe it, do you think that he would allow his own child to? And I don't have any evidence of this, but that his own child is a writer. He's hiding that child. They talk about it in this. He's hiding that child from the general public, but has another daughter that goes to Harvard, beautiful young girl. She comes out, she introduced him like at the Liberal Party, whatever. She believes it too. You need to understand that these people are relativists because they don't have an anchor to the truth. The truth is that Western society was built on forgiveness and sacrifice. And we've lost our way because a lot of people just simply don't want to admit that that's the case. And because of that, this managerial elite that works more or less for the king is trying to turn Canada against the United States and Europe. He has a lot of influence over a lot of people. All of these managerial elite that believe in secular humanist values, because they don't believe in God by definition, they're materialists. And if everything is material, then there's nothing that stands in the way of biodigital convergence. Do you understand? If you don't ask me questions, this is a big deal. Okay. God bless you guys. What a time to be alive.